without further ado, put your hands together for Beau Billingslea.
How you all doing? All right. I guess I should use the mic. Huh? Hey, all right, so I don't have to work myself too hard. So, yeah.
Jump right into it?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to be first? Who's got a question? Throw your hand up. I'm gonna come right over to you because I saw you might want to have to come to me a little bit. There you go. What is your question for Beau? What's your name and what's your question for Beau?
My name's David, and I was wondering, what was one of your most favorite scenes voice acting Jet from Cowboy Bebop?
Oh, good question. Good question. I guess I have more than one. I enjoyed when he goes back to Ganymede and he reunites with his old girlfriend and he puts his past to rest. It was kind of an emotional scene, and I think that's one of the nice things about Cowboy Bebop is it's grounded in reality, so that they're legitimate human emotions that are expressed by the characters. So that was very special. And I also had fun doing Mushroom Samba. You guys remember Mushroom Samba? I never thought that I would portray a stone character in anime. So of course Jet is talking to his bonsai trees, and I don't know if you remember, at one point he bursts out, he says, who am I anyway? So yeah, Mushroom Samba was kind of fun, and we had this one take. I think that was Mushroom Samba. Spike asked Jet, "What are we going to have for dinner?" We've been eating shiitake mushrooms over and over again, and finally, I decided I would give it a shot. I didn't think it would get through, but I decided to do it. And Mary Elizabeth said, "Yeah, well, give it a shot." So I said, Spike said, "What are we having for dinner?" So I said, shiitake mushrooms on ice. And we didn't think it would get through, but it got through. You know, we did a regular version of it just in case they were going to be unhappy and not put that in. But yeah, that was that was kind of fun. And also, Toys in the Attic was fun too. That's I don't know if you remember the episode, but there was the old lobster in the fridge, and that's a script we did. The four of us. I think we did it in Birmingham, and we did it in LA once for a benefit, and we did it in Washington, D.C. We did a live reading of Toys in the Attic, which was a lot of fun to actually read a script and do an episode in front of a live audience. So I hope that answered the question. I have a tendency to go on, but you know, I talk for a living, so that's my problem.
Excellent. All right, my friend, stand up. What's your name and what is your question for Beau?
My name is Jamal. I'm a fan of your work. My question has nothing to do with that.
Okay, Jamal.
If you had 4 people that you could choose to help you escape from an escape room, 4 real people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
4 people to do what?
Help you escape from an escape room.
Oh, escape. Well, one would be my dad. Another one would be Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'll tell you a quick little story about Muhammad Ali. I was in New York. I started my career in New York, and I was going on tour off of Broadway to do a national tour of a show. And we were at the airport, and we were at LaGuardia, and he had just come in. He was going to do a show on Broadway called Big Time Buck White, and I think he lasted about a week in there.
Hold
but
it further away from me. The kids
when he came into the airport, you know, everybody's, "Oh, that's Muhammad Ali, that's Muhammad Ali." And, you know, as the cast, we were flying to Cleveland. And so Brock Peters, who was the star of our show, called me over because he knew my athletic background, and he introduced me to Ali. So I had the great opportunity to meet him. And when he introduced me, he shook my hand, and he took his left fist and went like that and grazed my chin. And he said, "How you doing, little brother? How you doing, little brother?" So I guess Ali would be one. My dad, let me see, and I'm thinking of, this is, that's a very interesting question, a question I've never gotten. Let me think. It's to Barack Obama, somebody with a big brain. It's always good to have somebody around you with a big brain who can figure stuff out. And I have to say, actually, my mother. My mother was a very clever, loving, interesting, warm human being. That she was one of those people that, when we took her out for Mother's Day, we'd come back and, I don't know if you remember answer machines. There would be all these messages on the machines that, hello, Ida, happy Mother's Day, you're my second mother. Click. Ring, hello, Ida, happy Mother's Day, you're my second mother. So she was that kind of woman. So I think those would be the four people.
Excellent. All right. Who's got a question? Right over here. Stand up, state your name and your question for Beau.
My name is Keko. My question would be, do you think that Jet kind of acts as a voice of reason for Spike in the anime?
Oh, I didn't understand. Would you repeat it for me?
Do you think Jet kind of plays as a voice of reason for Spike's impulsivity?
Oh, a voice of reason? Yeah, I think that's, he was kind of like the solid voice of reason who is dealing with his personal issues, at the same time enduring Spike and Faye's shenanigans with their issues. And I guess you guys know Faye was, she was, because of cryogenics, Faye was 73 years old, but she didn't have the wisdom of a 73-year-old. You remember that? I don't remember what the name of the episode was, but you remember when she stole our Wulongs? She took off, and then she called for help. I said, okay, Faye, you stole our Wulongs, and now you're calling for help? I said, well, yes, Jet. Okay, here I come, I'll save you. Yeah, I think Jet was an interesting character. I think all of the characters were well written. But he had kind of this macho facade that, when everybody left and it was just him and Ein on the, he and Ein on the Bebop, and he's talking to Ein, and he's thinking to himself, and he's mumbling, I'm glad they're gone. I don't care, I don't need them. What do I need them for? And then he hears a noise, and he says, Spike, is that you? Really happy that, of course, it wasn't Spike. He thought it was, but it kind of revealed. I think it was really good writing that because so many men, especially with men of similar backgrounds to mine, who, I played football and I was in the military, and so you develop a persona, a macho persona, which is necessary in those environments. But in real life, vulnerability sometimes isn't something that men allow themselves, which is unfortunate. One of the things in show business, is on camera and with voice work, is finding the vulnerability in a character. Because it's so easy to be one-dimensional and to be this tough guy, and I think unfortunately it's some of our male members take on that as a role model, that's the way to be tough. But it's also I think advantageous for a person in their development to be vulnerable. But as a father, like being the voice of reason with my children and letting them know that I was the guy. I was the guy who was going to protect him no matter what. And so it's understandable where the vulnerability would not be shown by a man as a father, because you want to be the pillar of strength. Because like my father to me was Superman. You know, he could do anything, handle anything. He's always my protector, and it was a very comforting feeling. And I'm sure a lot of you have that same feeling, that you know, he's a guy that's going to protect you. But yeah, I think Jet was the voice of reason, and was kind of because of the age, I guess I can't say he's a father figure to Spike and Faye, but he was kind of like an uncle figure. You know, he was the good uncle. But yeah, all of the characters were written with their vulnerabilities, and I think that was one of the beauties of Cowboy Bebop, that it is relatable. Because, you know, we all have our problems. No matter how much success you have in life, you still have problems, and you have to deal with them, solve them, and not be a drag on people. You know, I don't know, you've probably all been in a situation where you've been mistreated by somebody who was having a bad day, even though you didn't cause the bad day. But so often people allow themselves to be rude, to put their problems on other people because they're having a bad day, even though those people didn't cause their bad day. But yeah, the voice of reason, that's an interesting phrase. It's something that I think is important to understand, that's a true leader. And I was fortunate to grow up as a leader. I was captain of my athletic teams, and you know, as an officer in the military, that I was put in positions of leadership, and there's a great combination in terms of voice of reason, a great combination of having a bad memory, bad hearing, and it's kind of like parenting. As I remember when I first became a parent, my father counseled me that he said, now, your daughter was born, so the most important thing in your life is to be a father. And as a parent, sometimes you have to have bad hearing and a bad memory. You know, sometimes you just have to ignore things that are said, and because you have to give the child the latitude to grow, to make mistakes, and I know I made a lot of mistakes as a child, and I was kind of adventurous and doing dumb things, and I remember something. I had a conversation with my father after I became an adult, and he mentioned a few incidents that I didn't think he knew about, and he said, "Oh, I knew," but he had the good sense not to put his thumb on me to pin me down, to try to make me a perfect person, to allow me the space to make mistakes. But I mean, he kept an eye on me. He did a good job of guiding me in the right direction. But he comes to mind when I hear you talk about the voice of reason. I was just talking with Larry a little bit ago that I was fortunate to grow up in a household where my parents didn't hit me or my sister. And I know that's pretty rare. And especially in the African American community, the spare the rod, spoil the child from the Bible, that ends up creating a certain amount of violence in the household. And my parents decided that they were not going to bring violence to our home. And I didn't necessarily understand how unique that was, because as you're growing up, your experience is your experience. And I guess I just assumed everybody grew up the way I grew up, until I saw one of our neighbors knocking his son around outside in the cul-de-sac. But I'm an advocate of that. You discipline your children, you guide them as best you can, but you shouldn't hit them. And whenever I get a chance, I try to spread that philosophy. Now, my son and my daughter have children, and we're on the third generation of children growing up not fearing a strap, a switch. What I feared was punishment, not being able to go out to play. You know, when I was punished, I remember one time my father told me this, you messed up and you should be punished, and he would get me to agree. I said, yeah. He said, so now you can't go out to play for 2 weeks. And I said, so I thought, well, you might as well just kill me. I can't go out to play for 2 weeks. What the heck is that? Okay, I'm going on and on. Well, that was the answer to the voice of reason.
All right. By all means, Beau, the time is yours. Use it how you want. Okay, who else has a question for Beau Billingslea? I'm going to come right here, and then there, and then back there. What is your name? What is your question? Nice shirt, by the way.
I had to come prepared.
Oh, nice shirt.
First of all, I do want to say it is a genuine honor to have this chance to meet you, to see that you are as real as the show that you were a part of. You're clearly a very real human being with a lot of wisdom, and it's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you.
I did just want to ask, though, you talked about like that macho personality a bit, and so when you were starting out with your career as a voice actor, did you feel that kind of like you were going against the grain in a way? Like you were kind of like, oh, voice acting isn't, it's certainly different from a military career, I suppose. Did you feel like you were maybe disappointing some people and or maybe pleasing some others?
Well, that's the way life is, right? You're going to disappoint people and you're going to please other people, and you can't pay too much attention to that. But of course, when you're on a gig, you want to please the director because you want to work again. But I'll tell you a quick story. I came to Hollywood to be an on-camera actor, because years ago when I started, there wasn't much in the way of voiceovers anyway. There was no anime or any of that. And I was taking a class, and the beginning of the class, of the exercise was walking on stage. It was an audition class, teaching you how to audition, walking on stage. And so we'd all take our turns, and when I went up, I started walking on stage, and my teacher said, go back. And okay, I took like 2 steps. He said, go back. And he said, don't come out until you're ready. And I walked back out. He said, go back. And I had no idea what was going on. And so he says, pull yourself down to 0, Beau. Pull yourself down to 0. And, as I say, I was new to show business, new to acting. And so I took some deep breaths, I shook it out, and then I walked out, and he says, go back. So I'm saying, I can't even get on stage to do this exercise, because the idea was to get on stage, walk on stage, and then just stand there. And just stand there at 0. Not excited, not under-energized, just at 0. And then finally he said, okay, come on out, Beau. And I came out, and he said, you're too macho. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I hadn't said anything. I was just walking. But I didn't realize, with all of my, the football and the military, that I had a bearing about me that was like, I'm this tough guy, macho guy, but I had no clue. And maybe I'll show you by walking. I'll show you the difference. So when I first came out on stage, I didn't realize that I was going, I was that guy. I had no clue. But finally, I became this guy. It's a big difference. And so one of the things about acting is to understand yourself and how you present yourself. And then the other thing was just standing there and being watched and observed. So I'm standing there like that. And he was describing, he said, what are you thinking about? And I remember I said, well, how embarrassed I am. How embarrassed I am because I'm failing in this exercise. Don't be embarrassed. You look a little foolish, but don't be embarrassed. So, Well, one of his techniques for teaching was to embarrass you. And one of the things about an actor is we say that you have to have a very high embarrassment level, because if you're easily embarrassed, that will limit your choices when you're acting, when you're auditioning, because you're afraid to take chances. So, in a lot of our training, it was putting you in a situation to be embarrassed, to be laughed at, to be ridiculed. And that was something that I had never experienced before I started studying acting. So anyway, I don't know how I got onto that. I guess I love the sound of my voice. I don't know what's going on. So sorry.
Did that answer your question, sir? Again, Beau, it's your time. Actually, I just want to throw something in here real quick. One of the first conventions I ever did, there was a Dallas-based voice actor named Brett Weaver, and someone asked him how to become a voice actor, and he said, well, the first thing is you got to be absolutely unafraid to make a complete fool of yourself in front of people.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And, to make jokes that aren't funny, stuff like that.
Got to be afraid to fall.
Yeah,
right. All right. What is your name and what is your question for Beau?
My name is Mimi, and my question is, if you could have Jet be in any other piece of media, what would you choose?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, if they hadn't done a live action show, I would say live action. But they've done that already. And I would have been Jet. So, wow, that's, I think this is the first time I've been stumped. Mimi, you stumped me. Jet in Star Trek. Well, that would be interesting. Jet and Captain Abbott. For those of you who don't know, I portrayed Captain Abbott in Star Trek Into Darkness. That's why I say Jet and Captain Abbott. But that would be interesting in Star Trek. Would he be? What would he be? Would he be a Klingon or would he be a Vulcan? I also played a Vulcan in Star Trek Continues.
He could just be a bounty hunter.
He what?
He could just be a bounty hunter in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you. And Mimi, that is the answer to your question. Thanks for the help.
I'm here for you, brother. All right, next question. What is your question? What's your name and what is your question?
Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm just wondering if you have any stories of, throughout the industry, anybody who's treated you especially well, somebody who is great to work with, or alternatively, someone who is absolutely terrible to you, and feel free to name names because all of us can keep a secret. No problem.
Well, okay. I'm pretty sure the second one is a guy named Larry.
Well, you know what? If I started naming the names of I was treated badly, of course they aren't very many, but that would be bad form, obviously. I could tell you some stories, but that wouldn't be uplifting. I've been lucky to have been treated very well in my life overall. I've had the traditional problems as an African American growing up in this country. But overall, I have to say that I've been very blessed, starting off with my parents, two magnificent human beings. I'm trying to think of some very special situations. When I was growing up, the Boys Club was very important in my life, and that's where I interacted with wonderful teachers and coaches. At the Boys Club, I learned how to roller skate, I learned how to play ping pong, I learned how to play pool, I learned how to shoot a 22 rifle. When I was 7 years old, one of the coaches of the Little League baseball team, one of the Little League baseball teams, talked to my parents to ask, because I was watching the team, but I wasn't old enough to play. I was standing outside of the chain link fence like this, watching the kids play baseball. And so the coach saw me and he felt sorry for me, so he dug out my parents and told them to say, he's not old enough to play with the team, but he can practice with us. He's not old enough to play in the games, but he can practice with us, and he can't be on the team until next year, but I'll look after him. And oddly enough, the same thing happened with the boys club. I wasn't old enough to go into the boys club, but we lived 2 doors down from it, and so Mr. Coffey, he talked to my parents and said, well, because I would sit on the stoop and watch the kids going into the boys club and wishing I could go in, but I wasn't able because I wasn't old enough. So Mr. Coffey said, you know, if you'll let him come in, I'll keep an eye on him, and so I had people, and that type of thing has happened, you know, throughout my life. I've had wonderful coaches who went the extra mile for me, teachers who helped me develop my mental abilities. It's my story. I'm actually in the process of writing my memoirs. My story is full of good fortune, where people reached out to me, and I was the benefit of a lot of love from people, and of course I try to give it back as much as I can, especially, you know, obviously with my family. I'm trying to think of something specific. It's just an unbelievable background that I've had in terms of people, for some reason, wanting to help me and to succeed. Even with David Craig and my acting teacher, who I just demonstrated, but he was helping me, and I didn't necessarily feel it at the time when he was beating up on me in front of everybody in the class. But yeah, I've been the benefit of a lot of good fortune from people who have reached out to help me, and I've tried to live my life to help others. And I'm sure if you haven't experienced that yourself, that you've seen that happen, or maybe you've helped people. I got that from my parents. My parents taught us that do good for goodness sake, not because you're going to get a reward, not because you're going to get paid, but just do good for goodness sake. And I grew up watching that. Like with my mom and my dad, they're volunteering at the polls and doing things for people. My father was a deacon in the church, and he was taking communion to the people who were shut in, who couldn't get out, and giving gifts to the mailman and the paper boy. And when I was a kid, everything was, not everything, but a lot of things were delivered. We had a milkman, so the milk would be at the front door in the morning when we get up. And so we had a milkman, we had a bread man, we had the coal man who brought the coal, we had an ice man we had an ice box before. There were ice boxes before refrigerators, and they were called ice boxes because there's a big chunk of ice. So the ice man would come and bring, with these ice hooks, he'd come and bring ice to put in the ice box. So we had all of these people, and my parents always made it a point to give all of them, first of all, to learn their names, and to give all of them gifts at least at Christmas, and sometimes during the course of the year, the mailman and all of these people. And it came back. There would be, in the fall, there would be a mysterious pumpkin that would show up on our front porch. Some neighbor would do that, and the kids would come, the older kids would come and shovel our driveway and shovel our walk for my mom and dad. And of course, I guess that's small town stuff that maybe wouldn't happen in New York City or Philadelphia, but you never know. But that's the way I grew up and have gone through life. So I'm not going to tell you any negative stories about how I was treated badly. They exist, but I'm not going to share them because why bring you down? Okay, next.
Here and then back in that row. What is your name? What's your question for Beau?
Hi, my name's Holly, and first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your service to our country and being so brave to be in the military and do what is technically necessary sometimes. And I know sometimes it's really hard to be brave and stand up for what you believe in, and I just want to say thank you for your service.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And my question is, has there ever been in your career, either voice acting or acting, have you ever done a scene that has made you so emotional that you either really started to cry or got really happy and laughy or ragey, and just like, has it ever like overcome you in an emotion by reading a script or acting something out?
Oh, definitely. You know, as actors, we try to inhabit the character, you know, the soul of the character. And I remember I was doing a show, I forgot the name of it, Adam 12, I think it was a remake of Adam 12, but I was portraying a owner of a florist, and he gets news that his daughter has just been the victim of an acid attack and she was blinded. And of course, I have a daughter, and you know, different actors conjure up their emotions in different ways, and I think most of us use our personal experiences. So that was almost too real, because I was, you know, imagining that that had happened to my actual daughter, and it was so emotional for me that you know, you don't, the idea, the efforts that we extend in the emotional genre is not to try to get tears, but you bring them up and try to pull them back and try to work against them. And I had difficulty doing that, and so the director said, he says, I don't know what you're using, but you got to change it. It's too much, it's too strong. He says, you know, because you're obviously, and I was weeping while he was talking to me, right? It was like I got stuck in the idea that my daughter was, you know, was blinded by somebody. And, but I'll have to say that I portrayed an enslaved person in a miniseries in the 80s called North and South. And the character was Ezra, and we started shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, where I was born. And it was a wonderful gig. And my parents came down to see me on the set for the first time. And we were shooting in Boone Hall. It's a plantation outside of Charleston. And some of the scenes were shot in actual slave quarters where actual slaves had lived. And trying to inhabit an enslaved person's soul was my objective. You know, I mean, that's what I was trying to do. So I'd meditated and tried to experience myself as an enslaved person owned by somebody who had the power of life and death over me. And the hopelessness of the situation, where, you know, what would his thoughts be when he wakes up in the morning? What were his thoughts when he goes to bed at night? Because, you know, there were enslaved people who were born enslaved, lived their life enslaved, and died enslaved, and never knew freedom, never knew free will to go and do what they wanted to do. And so that was that experience was very fraught with mixed emotions, because it was a great gig. I really, you know, paying me good money. I was working in Charleston. We started in Charleston and we went to Mississippi and Louisiana, but I was working in Charleston and where I was born, and it was wonderful. But on the other hand, I was portraying an enslaved person who had this horrible, miserable life. And it was a growing experience for me, because, you know, if I didn't have that role, I don't think I ever would have gone through that exercise of meditating and trying to be an enslaved person. But ever since that experience, I've suggested to people, and I suggest to you, not necessarily now, but just imagine yourself enslaved by somebody. You know, ignore the racial impact or anything like that, but just imagine, you know, living your life literally owned by somebody who had the power of life and death over you. And And to think that that happened with people for centuries, actually, here. And I think about, and sometimes, to manage my thoughts and my feelings, because, everybody gets depressed, you get down a little bit, no matter what level of success you've reached in life. And so there are different techniques. One of my techniques was to imagine, to relive experiences I had as a childhood, because as you can see, I had a wonderful childhood growing up in a small town in Connecticut with wonderful parents, and in a community where people were very supportive. So that was one of the ways where I would lift myself out of a depressed state of mind, and also imagining how other people have lived, and some people still live. It's like so many women basically live with their bully. I just can't imagine. That the whole domestic violence situation with some people, it's just so hideous and so horrible. And I think about, well, I'm getting depressed because I didn't get a role I wanted. And I'd be like embarrassed to look at myself in the mirror and said, "Really, Beau? Is that who you are? You're going to whine? You have this wonderful life, and you're going to get down because you didn't get a role that you wanted." And then next thing I know, I'm popped up. I'm going to go play tennis. I'm feeling good. My life is great. What am I talking about? I can pay my bills. I have a wonderful wife, wonderful kids, wonderful friends. I live in a nice house. All these great things, and I'm going to let some little thing get me down? No way. I'm Beau Billingslea. So anyway, forget about it.
What's your name? What's your question for Beau?
My name is Hannah, and I just wanted to say it's a great honor to meet you. But sorry if this is a generic question, but I was wondering, a lot of people talk about like your role in Cowboy Bebop, but other than Cowboy Bebop, what is your favorite thing like that you have worked on, like voice acting or acting, that has just like impacted you the most, or that you had the most fun working with other people or just working on?
Great question. Well, I'll have to say, I did a show on Nickelodeon. It was a live action show on Nickelodeon. It was 2006, 2007 we shot it, and it aired in 2007, 2008. It was called Just Jordan. And I played a grandpa who ran a diner, and my newly divorced daughter came to live with me with her two children, my two grandkids. And it was a sitcom, and it was, it was Nickelodeon. It was just a lot of fun. But the best part about it was that my granddaughter, who I think she was like 7 or 8 at the time, was working on the show as an extra, or, atmosphere. And so she was just having the greatest time running around the set, being the queen bee, because I was a series regular on the show, and everybody, treating her so well. And she'd pop into my dressing room, "Papa, we're going to go get ice cream at the," okay, who are you going with? Okay, all right, I'll be back. I'll let you know when I'm back, okay. And working with your family is just nothing better than that. And that was the only opportunity I've had in show business to actually work, with a family member. But the last show of our first season, the writers did us this great service of writing a food fight in the diner. And my granddaughter was working that day, and because she was a minor, my daughter had to be on the set, and one of the adults didn't show up, so my daughter worked as well. And so there we were in the diner, and they're smushing, getting like a handful of cake and smushing it in my face and pouring Kool-Aid on my head. And my granddaughter looked to my daughter and said, "Mommy, this is so much fun," smush. And I'll have to say that was probably the most joy I've had in my career, to work with my granddaughter and to have her running around the set all the time. And I remember one day she wasn't working, she called me and she said, "Papa, are you famous?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, maybe a little bit." I said, "Why do you ask me that?" She said, "Because my friends were talking about the Papa on Just Jordan, and they didn't even know you were my Papa." And I said, "Oh, how cute, you know. So do they know now? And she said, oh yeah, I told them. But yeah, to answer your question, that was the best, to have to go to work and have my daughter and my granddaughter there on the set and to share the experience with me. So that was it.
All right, what's your name? What's your question for Beau?
My name is Joseph, and I just want to say, as someone whose father was in the Navy for 21 years, also thank you for your service. It is a huge thing. My question has to do with your professional career as both an actor and a voice actor. It's mainly out of curiosity, how would you describe your experience with the differences between communicating and working with screen and feature film directors, and compared to that with voice directors, for say like ADR directors, working on your scenes with voice acting, or maybe episode directors trying to get a tone right with a scene, and how would you compare that to professionally with just being on a set like Star Trek Into the Darkness, Halloween H20, in the Army now, shout out to a childhood classic.
Wow, you know a lot of my stuff. Are you finished? Okay. No, one of the things about directing, a director has to have, or a good director should have, a very strong vision about what they want and what they want from the actor. And the other thing they have to have is the ability to communicate that. So they have to be good with the language so that they can express what they want from the actor. Like in Star Trek Into Darkness, J.J. Abrams was, he's a brilliant man, and he had very clear, strong visions of what he wanted from us, and he was able to communicate it. So that's a real joy for an actor. If you have a solid, clear understanding of what the director wants, then obviously it's easier to deliver and to play your part in furthering the story that we're telling. I've had good and not so good directors. I've had on occasion directors and voiceover directors who were not as clear in thinking as they should be in terms of understanding what they wanted. And if they're not clear with what they want, they're not really able to communicate it to me, to the voice actor. So it's can be very frustrating. There was one particular project, I'm not going to obviously mention any names or anything, but it was one particular project where I delivered a line and the director wasn't pleased with it, and we went through several iterations of the line, and then in my mind I decided I'm going to give that first reading that I originally gave, and the director says, boom, that's it. I gave the first, we're all human, nobody's perfect, and you can understand people make mistakes no matter whether you're a director or you're an actor. But if you're trying to deliver what is asked of you as an actor, and it's very frustrating if you're not able to do it. You're not able to give. I remember I was doing a show, a live action television show, and it was one of these scenes where we're walking and talking. As we say in the business, we're walking and talking. And it was a scene with a lot of urgency in it because I was an investigator investigating a plane crash. It was a military show. And I was a guest actor, and I was dealing with the lead actor, series regular. And as I say, it was intense and fraught with anxiety, and we're walking, and he's doing this leisurely walk. And so for me, it was kind of like this. I was just kind of like leisurely walking, but at the same time I'm saying, we got a problem, we got to figure out a way to fix it, and blah, 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 blah. And I had a lot of technical dialogue because I was an engineer. I had a lot of technical dialogue, and it was one of my worst experiences because I kept messing up the lines because the energy in my body wanted to walk quicker, you know, to walk with anxiety, urgency. And so I asked the actor, I said, you know, you could help me out a lot if we could walk a little faster, and so that my body language will meld with the anxiety that's required in the scene and that's existing in my body, because I got myself to the point where I was like that. You know, people had died in a plane crash, and his response was, "I'm walking the way I'm walking." And so, okay, well, I mean, I had to take, you know, I had no control over what he was going to do, and he was a series regular, so I had to fit myself into his world. And I finally did it, but it was embarrassing, you know, and when an actor's on set, and if you're messing up, you know, you have like 100 people out there, you know, the gaffers, the boom operator, the best boys, you know, everybody, and because everybody, their job, their idea is, let's get the shot and move on, you know, because I want to go home and have dinner with my kids. And every time they say cut, back to one, start over again, and you feel like you're like ruining everybody's lives, and everybody hates you because you can't get your words out, and blah blah. But so that was a pretty rough experience. You know, I empathize with directors because it's not easy to try to pull a performance out of someone when it's not just easy and free flowing. But as an on-camera actor, there are a lot of other considerations like the walking and talking. You know, as a voice actor, there's not that. You know, maybe you give the impression of walking, but you got to stay on mic. So you try to you don't want your performance to be stagnant, because the audience will kind of get a sense of that. If it's an action scene where your voice sounds differently from when you're standing still or when you're moving. And so, you know, if you're on mic, I mean, doing a voiceover gig and you're doing stuff like Steve Bloom doing Spike and his karate moves and everything, Steve would, you know, he'd be doing all of this stuff, but you got to stay on mic. As a matter of fact, you know, speaking to Steve, I remember early on I decided to stay. I had worked first, and I decided to stay back and watch him work. And I told, after the session, I told him, I said, you know, you guys have seen the bobbleheads that are like that? And I told Steve he was like a bobble body. His body was doing all of this stuff, but his head was still because he was staying on mic. I said, that's a technique. And I said, damn, you're good, buddy. So I don't know, that's kind of a weird answer to your question, but I think that's the best I can do.
All right, we've got time for one, maybe two more questions. So who's got some questions here? Do we have another one after this? One last one? All right, right there, you're going to be the last one. Stand up, what's your name, what's your question, sir?
Hi there, my name's Stevie. This might be a deeper question, whoops. But I wanted to ask, here, maybe I can. I wanted to ask, what motivates you to get up in the morning, get behind the microphone or in front of the camera? Or like, in other words, at the end of the day, what is it about acting that makes it worthwhile for you?
I enjoy the process. You know, I've had family members ask me, get me into business, and you know, I said, well, don't get into the business to be rich and famous, because most people who get into the business don't become rich and don't become famous. If you enjoy the process, if you enjoy putting together a character, and especially with stage, you have time to go to sleep and think about the character, and you come up with these ideas, and the character grows and grows and grows. Because with TV is like that, so you don't have time to live with the character very long. Movies not quite as quick, but it's still the same thing. With stage, you can enjoy it and come up with these ideas that enrich the character, the body language, like when I was doing North and South, when I was portraying that enslaved person, I used two of my grandfathers as my image, and one of my grandfathers, my mother's father, he didn't have the use of these two fingers, so he just had the use of these three fingers. So that was part of my character that I portrayed. And of course, actually, I tell you, when my mother saw it, she started to weep. That time when she came on set in Charleston, and she saw that I was, reminding her of her grandfather. Her father. It was very emotional for her. But that's it's the joy of the process. You have a gig tomorrow, you're like an athlete, you got a game, you got a game. And the same thing for me is acting, enjoying. Some jobs are more work than others. There are jobs that are stressful on the vocal cords, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the orcs. I've done some orcs so that my voice presentation was and that, if you do that for 4 or 8 hours, it's pretty stressful on your voice. And so then that becomes kind of like a gig. Pay me, let me get out of here. it's like, but no, it's a process. And with voice acting, we don't have a lot of time to prepare. We go in and see the script. A lot of times we don't see the script ahead of time. We go in the booth and bing, there's the script. And it's almost like a cold read, so you have to process very quickly. But that's a great challenge. And I think that the best voice actors do it best. Do it quickly, because a lot of times, you can come up with some brilliance. It could take you a month, but you have 5 minutes. So you're looking at the script, you're reviewing it and saying, okay, this is what we got, and it's like boom, boom, boom. When we're doing Cowboy Bebop, we had time. Now things are more rushed, but doing Cowboy Bebop, we had time. So that's one of the reasons I think that the dub came out as well as it did, because we really took the time to do it right. But that's what motivates me, in addition to my wife, my family, to have a couple bucks to help my family, to give them these exorbitant gifts. It's well, you all know, there's nothing like seeing the light in somebody's eyes when you give them a gift that they really wanted, that they really loved. So that's what motivates me.
All right. And our final question for this session, what is your name? What is your question for Beau?
Hi, my name is Jade, and I was just wondering, if you did sign to a talent agency or have a manager, how did you know to put your trust into them and that they could help you become a better actor and more successful?
Good question. I think as we all go through life, we kind of read people, and I like to think that because of my background, my experiences, that I've dealt with people a lot, and I've been a leader with people. I was captain of my athletic teams, and as I say, I was an officer and a leader in the military. And so I like to believe that I've developed a certain skill in reading people. And of course, nowadays, with social media, you can research people, so you can find out stuff about them, and it's kind of disarming, because people Google me all the time, and so they know more about me than I know about them usually. And when they're interacting, like with new people, I don't know what they know about me or what. And sometimes it's good to stay under the radar, but it's you all do it, I do it. It's just trying to develop the ability to read people and assess people in the right way. And it's not, I'm not perfect at it, and I've made some mistakes thinking, because there are some people out there who will fool you. But yeah, that's, looking in somebody's eyes and ask them, how do you feel we'll work together? How do you feel you can help me, help my career? And if the answers don't come out how I like, I say, you know what, let me think about it, and I don't think this is probably not going to work. the chemistry is not there. Because it's nice to enjoy the company of the people that you work with. It could be okay to work with somebody who's brilliant at what they do, but if you don't like being around them, life is kind of short. So I like to be around people who I care about, who care about me, who have the same values. I've been put off by a number of people in Hollywood who treated me with great respect, and I see them treating somebody horribly because they weren't famous. So that's one of the things. If I have an opportunity to observe how people treat other people who they don't necessarily respect or revere because they've reached a certain level of success, how you treat the least among us is what I would like to see. If you treat somebody who's you feel it can't do, and I've seen it, and it really puts me off when it's easy to beat up on people who can't defend themselves, so to speak. And so that's kind of how I assess people when I meet them. There's not somebody better than you or lesser than you. We're all people, and we have different views on things or different stations in life. But there's so many people. If you believe in God, or a higher being, then you should respect the beings that he or she created, and that's the other human beings. So that's one of the things that really puts me off when I see people talking down to other people because they think that they're better than them. So, that's the way I try to live my life, to see people as equals, whether sometimes it's hard, if I meet Barack Obama, he's a pretty special guy, but his blood runs red just like mine. And he's one of those guys who treats you with respect, even though he's been president of the United States. He treats you with respect. And he does, like in our society now, there's so much name calling and hatred that's out there. It's so sad to see in our politics, and it leaks down into our daily interactions with people. It's really sad, but it basically comes back down to the bottom line of treat people the way you want to be treated. But that's the way I try to assess people. And I've made my mistakes, but I think I've been, overall, I'm winning in that line.
And on that note, that is a really good ending to this session. One more time, put your hands together, give some love for Beau Billingslea.
Thank you. My heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you.
This is Kari Walgren, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like and subscribe. Plus, remember to have fun and follow your fandom.